Okay, I got 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Roberts?
Here.
Counselor Stinnett?
Here.
Youth Representative? Counselor Savage?
Here.
Counselor Fleck?
Here.
Counselor Soulsby?
Here.
Counselor Urban?
Here.
Mayor Gowdy?
Here. Okay, so there's no items to be added to the agenda. Brings us to item 4, appearance of interested citizens for items not on the agenda. The only one I have to speak was Rhonda Kay had submitted a written one, and I'll read that at this time. Good afternoon. Thank you for your time and effort in representing our wonderful little community. I would like to encourage our leaders to promote the health of our citizens and encourage a healthy lifestyle. Spending time outside, engaging in exercise, healthy diet, and supplements that enhance our immune system. Not everybody will take the vaccine for various reasons and should not be penalized for not doing so. However, many people are not aware that zinc, vitamin D3, carotene, vitamin C are recommended by many health professionals for strengthening our immune system against colds, viruses, and more. Overall, promoting a healthy lifestyle and should be the ultimate goal. I can't agree more. Thank you. Brings us to item 5. There is no public hearings. Item 6, consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion with a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Brings us to item 7, resolution ordinances. Item A, resolution adopting the North Regional Park Master Plan. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I would like to ask our city planner, Amanda Ferguson, to introduce this item, and John Friend, who will be making the presentation this evening.
Good evening, Council. I have the pleasure of introducing John Larson Friend actually to give you the presentation tonight. He's going to share his screen and actually has a formal presentation for you. But briefly, this item is to look and see if we are prepared to adopt the North Regional Park Master Plan as the guiding document for the maintenance and development of the North Regional Park. The Planning Commission did hear this application on January 20th, 2021, and has, through a master plan process, which is a type 3 application process, they have recommended approval. So at this point, we have attached a resolution that you could approve tonight, acknowledging the master plan as the guidance document for the North Regional Park. If you do so, then we will work to find grants and various other things to actually implement the plans, the recommendations. Alternately, of course, we can always be taking recommendations for amendments and modifications and other process that you might decide needs to happen after you've heard John's presentation. So at this point, I'm going to leave you to hear what John has to say. He's been working with us for just about a year at this point, and he's been an excellent employee for the city, and we'll be sad to see him leave. John?
Thank you. Yeah, let me share my screen here.
Year and a half, I should correct myself. It's been a while.
I'm so sorry. Let me open system preferences so I can share. I might have to duck out for a second because it's asking me to restart, so I'll be right back.
So while John is working on that, I'll give you some background. We began working on this plan as for an update during 2020. John has been, he started last March and did a series of surveys and additional public comment opportunities throughout the last summer. Throughout COVID, of course, most of those were virtual. But the plan that you see right now in front of you includes, obviously, in the appendices, all of those survey reports. I hope that the 138 page document wasn't too intimidating, but we wanted to make sure that we incorporated all of the really detailed background work that we did in order to develop those the recommendations that you saw before you.
Can't believe I'm that guy. Okay, there we go. Let's see. I'm usually the most prepared tech person ever. Let's see here. I apologize for this. Okay, I will be right back. I promise it'll work this time.
If it doesn't work, I actually can show the presentation as well. While we're waiting, does anybody have any initial questions?
No presentation would be complete without a technical difficulty. All right.
I don't think this
It's okay.
year
If it
would
was
be.
me doing it, it'd be sometime next week before I get it right, so.
Oh, it's giving me the option. Awesome. Okay.
Mr. Flex got a question before we start?
So is this going to be part of the comp plan, Amanda?
As part of the Parks Master Plan,
Parks Master Plan?
it is not being recommended to be adopted as an element of the Parks Master Plan. The Parks Master Plan itself needs to be updated, is at this point 13 years old. So it's actually on our work program to update. And at that point, if you approve this document, we'll probably integrate the recommendations from this document into the new version of the Parks Plan. All right, John.
Okay. All right, I'll take it away. Good evening, Council. Thanks so much for the opportunity to present on this plan that I've been working on for more than a year now. Yeah, I've been the intern since March 2021. So right as the pandemic was starting, I started up my work with you. So I'm really excited to finally be able to share this work with you all. So just as a little bit of an introduction, I'll give an overview kind of the park itself. I'll move over to the process that we went through to design this plan, and then I'll end off with a kind of a higher level overview of the findings and recommendations. I could go into detail on those, but we would be here for longer than the 15 minutes that I've been allotted. So yeah, so I'm sure that you have, I hope that you've been able to take a look at the document that we have been creating over the last year. The cover page looks like this. So this, as Amanda mentioned, this would be a guiding document. It wouldn't be binding per se, but it would definitely inform the decisions that would be made around the park going forward. So I'm sure that you're all familiar with where it is, but just in case, North Regional Park is in the northern part of the city. It's just north of the Cottage Grove Connector. It's kind of nestled between the Speedway, Water Treatment Plant, and Middlefield Golf Course. And it's also, as you can see, nestled between the Coast Fork Willamette River and the Row River. And this map here is part of our bicycle plan map, or the bicycle route map, I should say. So the park has had a long and rather interesting history. So it was originally, the land was originally bought, that original parcel in gray there was originally bought in, I believe, 1968, 1969. And there are sort of not planning documents per se, but kind of idea documents that we found going back to in the 1970s. And I believe this map here is from the 1985 document. As you can see, it's always, I think from the very beginning, the idea was to have this park be kind of a natural area that people can enjoy nature in, but also have it be an active area so that people can use it for leisure activities as well. Today, it is mostly a bike path and a walking path and the disc golf course that's there. So the cool thing about this property and this park is it has like a high level of potential for being a really, really great park within the Cottage Grove Park system. So think about the process that we went through. So during the spring of 2020, I started from home since the pandemic prevented me from being in the office, plus being a graduate student, I had to abide by the rules of the university, but that kind of gave me the opportunity to spend a few months researching and researching park best practices and the background of the park. And we also worked together in the planning department to start setting some goals for the document itself. During the summer of 2020, I was able to work in person, which from the rest of my colleagues in the planning program at University of Oregon, that was very, very unusual. But because of that, I was able to be there to conduct community surveys and really do on-the-ground work, getting to know the community and how the park was used on a daily basis. And then finally, that third section of work has been done since last summer, writing the plan, wrapping up, coming up with solid recommendations, and wrapping up the project until today. As I said, there were 2 community surveys, which were really, really enlightening. I had a lot of fun conducting those and really interacting with the community on. We really wanted to make sure that we put out these surveys because we wanted this space not to be something dictated by us as a city government, but be a park by the people, for the people, etc. So we wanted to get that public feedback in a really solid way. So we ended up doing 2 surveys. One was the first one was kind of a higher level one, lots of multiple choice questions, and we got some really great data from it. We were able to glean some information like it seems to be that the primary purposes that people go to this park for, walking, being in nature, and especially the disc golf. The disc golf is very popular. And we found the park.
I don't even know talking.
There, oh, someone in the background, sorry. The park appears to be not necessarily not a lot of people's favorite per se, but it's certainly not a disliked park, which is very encouraging. It seems that people do want to be in the space, and I think that the work that we can do can improve it greatly. The second survey was a little bit more spatial and a little bit more specific. So we were able to add in more visual cues for people to choose from, different designs of benches and trail designs and stuff like that. And there seems to be a very high desire for there to be a little bit more infrastructure put into the park, a little bit more trails, more access, more opportunities to be within the park. And then the other interesting thing there in the lower right-hand corner is there is a high desire in the community to change the name of the park, just like we changed the name of East Regional Park to Row River Park to kind of reflect the value of the park. And I think the key question that came out of the second community survey was, what would need to change for you to visit more often? And we have a kind of a word map here, and the size of the letters are basically indicate how many times that word was used within people's free-form answers. And as we can see here, safety is number 1. The sense of safety is very important to people, and the disc golf and the maintenance of the park itself. So now just to dive in, we have 8 categories of recommendations. As I said, I won't go into every single recommendation, but we kind of wanted to give you a high level of what we're talking about. So in this section, I'll have a slide kind of describing some of the findings, and then a slide that kind of describes the recommendations in reaction to those findings. So the first section is kind of general. The surveys showed that the community is very interested in improving the park, as I mentioned. So simple fixes like providing signs and path improvement and measures for safety. I included this picture. This is from the survey. This was the most popular type of sign. So it seems that people want to have a type of sign so that they can orient themselves within the park at any given time, instead of maybe feeling not lost per se. It's not a complex park structure, but just having a sense of place when they're in it. So among the recommendations, designing and producing wayfinding signs and markers for placement throughout the park would be a really great recommendation. Next, we have the natural areas. Obviously, the natural areas are a huge part of the park. So we think that there's obviously a huge potential for the park to be improved, and the community does have a high desire for connection to nature, and we think the space is perfect for that. Creating a natural park, but a managed space. There are opportunities, as I'll mention, as you can see there, and I'll mention here, there is an opportunity. ODOT will be conducting an archaeological study along the Cottage Grove connector here soon, so that we think that there is an opportunity to partner with ODOT on that project. And we talk often about conducting a wetland study to really establish those riparian zones within the park. Next, we have education. The park itself it has a lot of potential for having various types of educational spaces. A great space for the local history, art installations, looking at the natural flora and fauna of the Willamette Valley, and because it's right next to the water treatment plant, a natural relationship between them and the city, to basically promote the hydrology of the area as well. So among many other things, recommendations around working with local historical societies to kind of come up with an interpretive plan that could be integrated into the park, and that's expanded upon in the document as well. Connectivity is also a highly contentious subject when it comes to North Regional Park. It is, as I said, a part of the Cottage Grove bike path. However, the public perception from the surveys indicates that the park really feels disconnected from the rest of the community. That's probably because it's between, or it's kind of cut off by I-5 and the connector. But there's also some dangerous bike connections right here, as you can see, going across 99 into the park. And then, of course, the other option to get into the park is from the north, but you have to take this more than a mile path from the disc golf or the golf course, Middlefield Golf Course, all the way over to this area. So we definitely recommend reevaluating the way that the current bike route is designed, and consider ways in which to improve those connections between other areas of the city and the park. And then there's more connectivity recommendations. This one is really exciting to me. As we saw in the old plan from '85, this ODOT land north of the park was always sort of considered to be an option for integration into the park, but it was never carried forward. It's still owned by ODOT at this point. And I believe Fay has had some contact with them, but I haven't had any. I haven't followed up with him in a while about that, so we'd have to talk about that. But we do know that ODOT owns the orange part. The red part that kind of juts out into here is kind of an unknown area. It might be an unrecognized river right of way. But we think that there's a lot of potential for purchasing this park or part of the park and integrating it into the North Regional Park structure. And it would be a really natural wetland experience for visitors. So of course, that being said, acquiring the ODOT parcels and extensing a more extensive master plan to expand upon those findings that we have found. The plan would include how to put in trails and boardwalks and beach access and more other amenities, and there's even more potential for habitat, floodplain, and fisheries restoration, which that's pretty exciting as well. Formalization of the golf course, of the disc golf course. This is a very important piece of the park, especially according to the surveys. It's kind of become a fundamental part and maybe even the most well-known part of the park. But it's not in great shape. So it did recently get new tees on most of the disc golf course itself. But there is a lack of signs, and there's not really a way for new players to know how to play unless you have a smartphone. And that's just not as inviting as it could be as a way of inviting people into the game. So just to start, among many other recommendations, we recommend designing and producing instructions and wayfinding signs and developing a map of the course for written and online publication. And as I mentioned before, there is great support for renaming the park. We've discussed various options for renaming the park. One option is we found that there is a bit of a lack of acknowledgement within the city about the native culture that used to reside here in the area. And one idea that we've come up with is possibly renaming it for either the Yankala tribe or the Kalapuya tribe. So that's one option that we've come up with, but we also want to include the community in that process. So recommending that there be a public engagement process with allowing the community to reflect on its past and its history and come up with a really great name going to really reclaim that space. I got safety here. There is a perception that some of the parts of the park might be unsafe for some people due to the underbrush and the presence of people experiencing homelessness in the area. So we recommend definitely engaging in some underbrush management and possibly even collaborating with the local police department. But that's another factor that will either encourage people to come to the park or not. And then finally, I've gone over my time a little bit, looking at furniture upgrades. A really big piece of a park is basically the inviting feeling of it. So right now, North Regional Park has a lack of benches and trash cans and other furniture, infrastructure, etc. So the park seems a little less welcoming at this point. So just really sitting down and designing and installing some benches and garbage cans throughout the park, especially along the main trails and those possible side trails that could be included in the future. So with that, I know I threw a lot of information at you all at the same time, but I hope it kind of sparked your imagination on what this park could be. And fallen in love with it over the last year, and it's been really fun to put this document together for you. So I assume we can take questions at this point.
Can we go out of presentation mode?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Irvin was first.
Oh, sorry.
You didn't see him. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. I just want to say thank you for paying attention to this park. I think it is an amazing asset for this community, and I'm very excited reading through this plan on what it could become. I had a few thoughts. I guess safety was the biggest word on that chart, so I'll start with that. You know, when something's there's a lot of things that will increase safety inherently, maintenance, just more use by the public, and you know, cross uses, not just disc golf crowds, but you know, families and everything. But having gone to U of O myself, I'm reminded of those little yellow pillars with the blinking lights for kind of an emergency situation that can be hit to alert. Something like that might be worthwhile in a large park like that, especially with any potential expansion. And that would be, you know, that's some infrastructure level integration there. Also, some elements. There's a couple elements of Central Park that I think would work here really well in concept, and that would be, you know, in Central Park in New York, they've got kind of, you walk into an area and it's its own little thing. Like, oh, now we're in a baseball field, or oh, now we're in this kind of little rock garden pavilion area. And I think the landscape and what's going on out there with the river, the different areas could lend itself to our own little Northwest Central Park kind of thing, to where you could have different environments that when you walk into them, it's a place to enjoy, but still feels secluded in a way. And then integrating the riverfront, I really like the idea of expanding up into that river area, and highlighting fishing and just things like that in that. Of course, I guess the sky is not the limit when there's a budget involved, but I don't know what that budget is. But I just wanted to offer support for this plan. Thank you for your work on it. And my final question was, when I never heard about these surveys, so how did those go out? And, you know, who was polled?
I thankfully, so for the first survey, I'm happy to report that we were able to reach a 95% confidence level, which for those of us who have gone through different statistics classes and stuff like that, that basically means that the results that we got, we have a 95% confidence in the results. Those went out in various ways. We used local social media groups. We posted in City Hall, and we placed posters in the park itself with QR codes and links that people could basically go to give feedback about the park while they were in it.
Thank you.
Mr. Roberts?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John, I want to say that was a great presentation. I know you put a lot of time into that, and I want to thank you for it. I like your emphasis on making sure and upgrading the disc golf. I think that's an important thing for us to work on. Is I know a lot of people that travel many miles to come play in our disc golf course, and I know that if we make it even better, it will help. It's great for economic development in our community. And then as our town grows, you know, creating a bigger and better park for the population boom that we're going to have over the next 5 to 8 years is a good thing, especially when it includes a lot of nature areas in it. So I want to applaud you on putting together a great piece there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Savage?
Thank you for putting out these surveys. I participated in both of those surveys, and it is absolutely thrilling to see what the possibilities are coming into this. I wanted to make note on Councilor Irving's comment about Central Park. Down in Ashland, Oregon, there's Lithia Park, and Lithia Park was designed by the same gentleman who designed Central Park. So if folks would like to go see something that's similar, just a couple 100 miles south, there's that, which is really exciting. One of the other concepts that I saw mentioned in the questionnaires that I don't know where it went, but I kind of want to bring attention to it, is kind of the outside workout space. We're coming out of a pandemic here and people have a hard time going to gyms. It's kind of exciting to think that, gosh, there could be some pull-up bars or some benches where I can do some inverted crunches or something, maybe at the beginning of the bike path. Where did that go? Is that still kind of in the works? Was that surveyed? How did that pan out?
I believe it was mentioned within the plan somewhere. It didn't go anywhere. Amanda and I talk about it decently often whenever we talk about the mess or this work. So it hasn't gone anywhere, and it's certainly a really good option, I think. And
If you actually look at your slides, John, I think it is actually one of the recommendations.
I believe it is too.
Cool. Thank you.
Any other, Mr. Fleck?
Yeah, I thought it was a great plan. I really appreciate it. I support all of it. It's just a matter of course, finding the money. You know, as far as the exercise stuff, it seems like at one point we talked about doing that along our rails to trails, and then it seems like Bohemia Park also has talked about doing these things. I support all of it. I think exercise is awesome, and I think any chance we can get people out doing it. So I certainly would encourage that. I also think Councilor Irvin's suggestions about the little beacons you can push is a very good one. I've walked out there in the past, and out at the far ends of it, it is pretty remote. So I think that's a pretty good suggestion. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Stinnett?
Yeah, I want to just join in the chorus of folks thanking you guys for a well thought out, well presented presentation. This is it's quite exciting, honestly, to me. I've used the park for a couple of reasons, you know, the disc golf and walking, running, biking, the trail. But I mean, unless you look at something this comprehensive, you don't get a full look at the potential of the park, first of all, but also kind of the challenges and the maintenance that it does need. So it's a great comprehensive look at things. I would fully support renaming it too, to kind of give it a bit of buzz, a bit of something that people can cling to in the community, and a bit more identity. I also wondered about, I mean, can we have a walking or a running or some kind of event that brings people there to give them kind of their first taste of it, to help them identify with it, maybe a dog walk or something, I don't know. I also wondered in terms of outdoor activities, has the notion of an archery range come up? I don't know of one nearby. I think that's pretty low outlay, pretty low maintenance, and a nice thing that families could do together. It could draw maybe a different demographic. I fully support, of course, opening, improving the disc golf course. And like Councilor Roberts said, I know a lot of people that come to town to use that course. There's a lot of potential for events in that too. It's also exciting to see the wetland habitat that's there. The city's already an important steward of a lot of the local wetlands within the city limits. I think that could certainly extend to this park. I think it's exciting to me. And again, thanks for bringing it to the public consciousness. I did wonder, it almost seems to prescribe a more in-depth master plan. Is that just something we revisit eventually? When do we decide to get more in-depth and make more concrete plans with the park? Anyway, thanks again.
I'm sure that probably Amanda can speak to that. As far as my perspective, yeah, this was always intended from my point of view to be a first step. Just get something down on paper. Obviously, it was a lot more work than that, but yeah, I'm really excited that it's being embraced by you all so far, and yeah, I think it'll be an excellent first step to spark the imagination of the community.
As John said, we really considered it a first step, in part because it was during COVID, and we knew we couldn't get as much public engagement as we really wanted. But certainly, if we did expand the boundaries of the park, we would absolutely need to do a second bite at a master plan for that area, and we would really want to look at that. And I also think once we have a better feel for the boundaries of the wetlands, then that might also be a time at which we trigger a revision of the master plan.
Do you have anything else to add? Do you have a resolution number?
2044.
Mr. Fleck?
Mr. Mayor, move that the council adopt resolution 2044.
Second.
I have a motion with the second. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Roberts?
Aye.
Counselor
Aye.
Savage?
Aye.
Counselor Solsby?
Aye.
Counselor Fleck?
Aye.
Counselor Urban?
Aye.
Mayor Gallagher?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, business from the city council. We have safe routes to school and Fillmore Stormwater Outfall Project change order approval. Mr. Bradsby. For some reason you're muted still.
How's that?
Yeah,
There
we
we go.
got you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, council. Since December 2020, I've had the privilege of coming before you with change order items due to the fact that to meet contract law, anything over 10% of the project needs your approval. Tonight, I'm coming before you with 4 items. 3 of them are financial. 1 is time. We anticipate this being the last change order for the project. The first item is repair of a water valve at the intersection of South River Road and Harrison Avenue. Basically, when we got to that portion of the site project, only sidewalk work was being done. Public Works asked if, since they were there, they could repair that for us. There was another repair outside the project area. They found a catch basin at Harrison and South 8th. We added paint striping. When they were putting signs back up, we've noticed that there was only one sign between the railroad tracks and Taylor saying no parking. So everyone that used to live there was familiar with that. I had several people ask, we're going to do the same thing. And I assured them yes. And of course, having 9 months of construction, people got lax. And we moved parking from this side to that side and back and forth. And so I think it was a great idea for safety. And that's $10,000. The last item is just a change. As you know, we're still working on the intersection of South 8th and Taylor. Poles were removed today, and they're hoping to get sections of sidewalk done this week, but they're pulling their concrete crew off of schedule. It's good to get that done. So the change order here, or the item, is just to extend the completion of the contract. So the change order is in the amount of $12,892. In the memo, you have budgeted versus current expenditures. And basically, I'm asking for approval of these 4 items for change order number 9. Questions?
Ms. Roberts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Where do I start? Ron, the $4 per foot, just for my information, does that include labor or is that just the paint?
That's labor and everything.
That's, okay, so it is labor and paint. And then the repair catch basin, is that the northwest corner? Is that the one that's still waiting to be repaired?
It's been repaired. This isn't on the job. This isn't in the project area. It's Harrison and South 8th, not Taylor and South 8th. So it's completely out of the project construction zone.
Thank you, Ron.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Fleck.
So, and I asked on Friday, and I just wanted to kind of, for the public's sake, reiterate that we had talked about the 7th and Taylor intersection, 8th and Taylor, I'm sorry, 8th and Taylor intersection, and that the branch engineering is going to cover that. But I'm assuming this says last change order. If they pay for it directly, it won't need a changeover. But if they end up paying us as a reimbursement to us, there will be another change order, right?
That's correct.
That is
yeah.
correct.
And so
Okay.
we'll be working to try to do it from them directly to Wildish, so we don't have to deal with it.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And then, so with that, I'll move that the City Council approve the extra work items for a total of $12,892 for change order number 9.
Second.
I have a motion with the second. Is there any more discussion on it?
Nope.
Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item B, review and adoption of the 2021 council goals. Mr. Myers.
So you have before you a revised, it didn't get shorter list of goals after our discussion at the previous work session and the previous work sessions and other meetings. So you have the list before you. It is for your review and any wordsmithing or changing you want to do, and hopefully some kind of adoption or approval of those so that we can move forward and try to get those accomplished. Questions?
Mr. Stent, will you raise? Okay.
I do kind of worry about the size. It's a bit of a ponderous document. It would be hard for me to know how to single things out to get them done. Honestly, there's a lot here. Obviously, there are a lot of challenges. Some of these are closer to the moment in terms of their need to get accomplished. I don't know what to do about that. I think there's just a lot to do. So maybe there isn't much we can do to whittle it down, but it would be nice to come back in a certain amount of time and know that we had accomplished some things. So just a bit of a feeling. I don't know if you all share that, but that's just kind of my thought looking through it.
Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I forget what the context was that we were talking about recently. Oh, it was the MUFTI, kind of having a chart that graphs out kind of how we're doing in terms of our goals with the meeting the housing needs. I think something similar when this in concept would be helpful here with our goals when we're accomplishing things, having check that one off. This is what we got to over this last year or 2 years. I don't know what the cadence of these goal settings is going to be. But I would find that helpful, and I think it might be a helpful thing to post on the website, or just kind of draw the lines to what we're doing and how it's meeting these goals.
Yeah, I think getting back in, I would say 6 months, but that would put us into the holiday season. So I would say like October-ish to do a pulse check on it and, get together as a work session again and see where we are and what we need to change.
I'm cool with that.
Mr. Fleck.
Yeah, I just want to commend the council and Richard. I think we've added some key pieces to this. Some of those, are ongoing, of course, because, they're challenging to achieve, but I still think it's a good value to have them there as a reminder to us. I will say, though, I love the idea of checking in. I know this typically sits in the back of my binder since I'm the one guy who still gets paper. And it would be nice to actually see that getting updated periodically when we do check things off. So I think that's a wonderful suggestion. I support it completely.
Does anyone want to make a motion to adopt these goals, or Mr. Fleck?
So I'll move that the council adopt the goals that are presented.
Second.
I have a motion with the second. Is there more discussion on it? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, Urban Forestry Committee appointment, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the end of December 31st, 2020, there were 2 positions on the Urban Forestry Committee that became open, and it has taken us quite a while to find a couple volunteers to apply for this position, but we did, and I believe Mayor Gowing, Councilor Roberts, and Councilor Flex were on an interview panel Friday of the 2 applicants for recommendations to fill out this committee. Those positions would have began January 1st, 2021. Their 3-year terms and go through December 31st, 2023. I would look to the chair of the interview committee to make a recommendation to the council at this time.
Well, I was the chair of it, and I messed up because we had 2 applicants and 2 positions. We usually would typically not interview, but we went ahead and interviewed, and so both of them good candidates. Paul Higgins was basically a returning candidate that didn't apply until later. So I'd entertain a motion that we put Deborah Bartlett and Paul Higgins on the Urban Forestry Committee.
Second.
Mr. Fleck?
I was just going to make the motion that we appoint those 2 to the Urban Forestry Committee, and I've already got a second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, brings us to item D, Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan Update Advisory Committee Appointment. Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you very much, Council. So the Department of Land Conservation and Development recently received pre-disaster mitigation funds from FEMA that they requested last year, and they just came through to assist the City of Cottage Grove in updating our Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan. This document is required to be updated every 5 years, and we last updated in 2016. We are forming an advisory committee at this point. Representatives on this advisory committee will be from City Council, Lane County Emergency Management, South Lane School District, South Lane County Fire and Rescue, the Army Corps of Engineers, Peace Health, the Watershed Council, Community Sharing, the museum, and others. We will be working with DLCD to develop and write the plan beginning probably in August of 2021, and advisory committee meetings will begin early August and then be concluded about February of 2022 is our hope. At this point, I am asking that the City Council appoint a representative to the Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan Advisory Committee to help us guide this project.
Mr. Irvin? Which one?
Oh, I'm happy to do it.
Oh, okay. Mr. Fleck?
Did I hear community sharing would be a stakeholder in that?
Indeed, Mike, we actually previously talked about you joining to represent community sharing.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
So Mr. Irvin would like to be on that. Does anybody is that good with everybody? Do we need that as a formal motion or just so be it? Mr. Myers?
I think that since it's a an advisory committee, you could make that appointment. There's nothing saying that it has to have a motion from the council. As long, you know, if you've got the consensus of the council, you're squared away.
Okay, so be it then.
So be it. Congratulations.
Okay, item E is bid award for project 1036 interchange landscape improvement. Mr. Sisson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to move the podium a little bit further away from Cameron. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Tonight we have a memo before you discussing the bid award for the interchange landscape improvements slated for the I-5 interchange north of the CG connector on both sides, the west and the east side. This project consists of the construction of a new irrigation system and basic landscape plantings. And beginning April 9th, we began the bid process, and on May 6th, we opened a bid from Milroy Golf Systems Incorporated. In the amount, their bid was in the amount of $458,516. The architect's project estimate was about $450,000. So that came in pretty close to the estimate. However, we did, the city did purchase $37,000 or $38,000 worth of PVC piping due to what we're warned about, and that is resin shortages and just overall shortages of pipe itself. So we hustled and got some pipe. We didn't want to wait until a contractor was awarded a contract and then began buying pipe 3 to 4 weeks later. So we have that pipe coming to us. We used ORS 279C 375 to review the responsibility and qualifications of the contractor. We went through a checklist to make sure that the contractor met the state standard for competency. Also attached to this memo is, because we only received one bid, I asked the architect to provide an email that attested to the contractor's competency. He has experience with that contractor in the Portland area, and so he felt and certified that they're up to doing this project, and they have the horsepower to do it and do it well. If the council chooses to follow staff's recommendation and award to Milroy Golf Systems Incorporated, the award will be considered final upon completion of the 7-day protest period or resolution of any timely filed protest. The contract may then be signed and performance would commence. We're expecting the contractor to be complete by Friday, September 1st, 2020. Finally, the project, when it's finished, will be maintained by the city crew and operated by Roger Vandehay, Superintendent of Middlefield.
Any questions? Mr. Fleck?
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll move that the City Council award the 1036 Exchange Landscape Improvement Project to the qualified bidder, Milroy Golf Systems Incorporated, in the amount of $458,516, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract and confirm all associated documents subject to the expiration of the protest period or resolution of any timely filed protest.
Mr. Urban?
I'm not seeing the bid on the agenda, and I just wonder if anybody else was able to read the bid, or if they.
It was uploaded Friday afternoon.
As part of this item? Or somewhere said.
8E1.
You'd have to log back out and go back in to get it updated.
Well, specifically, Councilor Irvin, you were looking for the contractor's paperwork, the bid from them. I can certainly provide that. Absolutely.
Gotcha. I thought we were supposed to review the bid as part of this item.
Pardon me. We don't generally bring the contractor's bid to council, but I'm more than happy to provide that to you.
And I know it's the only one, so I mean, I'm happy with going through with that. I just thought.
Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ryan, I mean, I'm aware that this project needs to get done. It's a really important part
Can I second it?
of what we're
Point of
doing.
order. Did we get a second?
Oh, we
Second.
did? I'm sorry. I thought we did.
Second.
Mr. Irvin seconded it
Oh, we did?
just now.
Just now.
Sorry, Mr. Fleck. I want to be out of order.
Go ahead.
So, I go back, Mr. Sisson. I'm aware this is very important. How long was this bid process open for?
It started April 9th, went through May 6th, so almost a month.
Because it just seems, I mean, I'm no expert in this. It just seems really expensive and we only have one bid. How do we know that this is the right financial move for our taxpayer to get this done? I'm just looking after the money side of it. I know it needs to be done and I'm for it getting done.
Absolutely.
But there's just one bid here. So how do we know where we are with this as far as what we're getting?
So let me take you back to our mandatory pre-bid conference. At that conference, we met here first at City Hall, actually out in front of this front doors, and we had about 8 or 9 people that attended. Then we went back out to the I-5 interchange and walked around both sides. And we had actually a couple more people join us that were either contractors or vendors, subcontractors that were hoping to get on with general contractors. At that meeting, we had 3 general contractors. Of course, we only have one that chose to bid. But due to the time of the year and actually qualifications, canceled out one of the contractors. We wanted them to be certified in the irrigation control system that we're going to give to Roger Vandeheghe to operate. And so the landscape architect put in there a line that said you must be pre-certified or have experience installing these already. And that's what I learned at that pre-qualification meeting from the landscape architect is that it's not something that you just plug it into the wall and it's up and running. A lot of customer service and setting it up, and I felt like in talking to this general contractor that they obviously have the experience. The landscape architect supports their bid. And secondly, and I'm going to leave the economic question here to the side for a second, but secondly, we went through ORS 279C 375, and it takes you through a checklist of the elements that form the basis or the basics of what a general contractor needs to show to be competent. Check their CCB number, check their record, check any complaints, whether they were resolved. They have no complaints. Their CCB number is active. They've been in business for a long time. And so from that standpoint, I felt like I could come before council with the landscape architect's email in hand that's attached to this memo and confidently recommend the approval or the award to this one contractor, despite only receiving one bid. I believe we did our due diligence.
Mr. Stewart?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to add a couple more items to Mr. Sisson's comments. The first is that the engineer's estimate was actually prepared quite some time when he prepared the construction documents. I believe it was in excess of 6 months before this was bid. As you might know, the bid is very close to the estimates, but we have experienced some very large increases in costs of materials. In fact, we were very concerned that we weren't going to get the pipe necessary to do the job, and we went ahead and purchased it before the bids were actually completed and submitted to help guarantee that we had the product. The second is I reached out to a local company who has done some irrigation work in the past for the city and asked them if they would consider looking at it. They did. But unfortunately, their work schedule was so full that they could not fit this project into their work plan. So I suspect that there is a lot of work taking place in the irrigation industry, and that's another reason why I believe that we didn't have as many bidders for this project as we might have thought we would have in the past.
Thank you both, gentlemen. I just want to know what to tell people when they ask. So thank you for answering that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there any more questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, item F is Vision Keeper Committee appointment. Mr. Myers.
So we have a lead partner position that we can now fill. South Lane Mental Health has appointed a new executive director, and they are a lead partner and have been bouncing around with substitutes basically for a while. And so we have before you the possibility of appointing Noah. And I'm going to massacre his last name, Zepta as the lead partner representative on the Vision Keepers for South Lane Mental Health.
Mr. Fleck.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the City Council appoint Noah Zepeda as the representative for the lead partner, South Lane Mental Health, with the term to expire December 31st, 2021.
Second, yeah.
A motion with second. Is there any discussion?
He was, Mr. Mayor, Noah was very strong at the last Vision Keeper meeting. I like a lot of the things he had to say. I think he's going to be a great addition to that group.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, item G, correspondence with Governor Brown. Mr. Myers.
So we've had councilors express an interest and a desire to send a letter to Governor Brown, and this came up after all the 15 or 14 counties were moved to the extreme category, and since being put on the agenda, things have changed again, and we've moved back to the high category. The governor is also in her news release stated that by the end of June, the matrix levels will be gone, whether that means there'll be new system or whether it's going to be completely gone. And what that's depending on vaccinations or what. But so the question becomes, does the council want to send a letter or some kind of correspondence to the governor still? What does that want? What do you want to have in it? And how should we go about preparing that? What kind of items could be in there and put that together? So this is up for your discussion. There were some items that were brought up at the Friday morning meeting agenda session. Something asking, is there a date? Is there some date that she has that, and would it be nice to have some strong leadership that would establish a date for when certain things are going to happen in the future, and that society should not be putting the burden on other users in the community or other people in the community or businesses, for example, if society is not following the guidelines, and an urgence to follow the data and the specifics associated, that the people or businesses that are being impacted are not the ones that are creating the caseload or the instances of infection, and please take those into consideration as you look at anything else.
Yeah, and that's, this got brought up, like I said on Friday, that I had gotten lots of emails and contacts on Baker City, and I think some of you all had got them too. The resolution that Baker City adopted, I didn't see it having any real value to it. It was just a resolution. Councilor Fleck and I talked about this early that week and got this on the agenda, but by the time the agenda was put on, it was already back. But, I feel by the end of this month, everybody that should be able, that wants to be vaccinated, the way they're coming out so easy to get, that you should be able to have them after, my opinion, after June 1st, you're on your own. If you don't get vaccinated, it's, that's your choice. And I think we need to start having a drop solid date of here, we're going to start moving forward. Things have got to change. And, businesses are suffering because we can't. So That's my opinion. I'd love to hear what you guys got to say. Mr. Urban?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really, my sentiment is freedom. Allow now that we have these options with the vaccine, allow people to make the best choice for themselves and businesses, and just the sentiment. Please lift all restrictions and focus on providing accurate, good data and good interpretation of that data, and disseminate that. But then let us, put the wheel back in our hands.
Ms. Soulsby?
I am absolutely with Councilor Irvin on this, that I believe that many of our businesses have been targeted when they have not been able to show us the data that any infections have come from restaurants and bars. And as far as the restrictions go, I do want to see them lifted. And if she's going to do it based on counties, Lane County is the size of Israel. It's a very big county, and we are much more rural. And so, of course, our infection rates are going to be much smaller than, the bigger cities. So I would like to see them somehow be able to maybe go by region instead of a whole county. And because I agree, our businesses have suffered, and our citizens have suffered, and our children. Thank you.
Mr. Fleck?
So I guess I really liked Richard's suggestion of I don't know, of a thank you or just a, thank you for recognizing. Because if you look at the responses, it was across all of the political spectrum. I mean, I think everybody said, whoa, time out. We're making businesses that have already suffered suffer more. But I do think it's really important to note, because there are a lot of folks who, how do I say this? I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to say, I think it's good for us to acknowledge that, yes, this has been a serious pandemic, that, we did need to take some measures, but I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that, let's have a time frame. Let's have some definitive, if we cannot reach herd immunity, how are we going to move forward and keep our businesses, going? Because, I, as much as I want to encourage everybody to have vaccinations, it's funny, just 2 hours ago, I was in a public health advisory committee meeting, and, there are concerns that, there will be variants, there will be, if we don't get vaccinated, that this will, carry on. And so I hope the education continues and that, people do get vaccinated, and that as children are able to, the children to get vaccinated. I mean, that's my hope. But I do think that if, in fact, we can't get there, we cannot, continue to destroy our economy if we can't get people to join. So I like I said, I would like the resolution or letter, whichever we choose, to be positive and one of, let's work together to find a solution where we can keep our businesses, working while, doing what we can to address the pandemic.
Mr. Stinnett?
So I've long kind of noticed and believed that Cottage Grove is kind of, how I like to put it, sort of quintessential as a small town in Oregon. We have a lot. We could be just about anywhere, honestly. We're a community that has a lot in common with a lot of other communities in Oregon. I think I would love to see our correspondence with the governor be really, really honest and really bare and realistic about the impacts of whatever she chooses to do, with regard to restrictions or the lack thereof in Oregon. I don't have the knowledge and the background that the state government does, but I think the notion that let's talk about how exactly how impactful this is, what it means to real people, and to keep that forefront in the minds of the people that are making these decisions. I wouldn't say I can't advocate for removing the restrictions, but they are impactful and detrimental, and they don't necessarily hit the most. They don't seem to me to be hitting the industries that can show causation and spread of the disease. So again, just I'd like to really show, using our community as an example, what kind of effect these restrictions have had.
Anyone else? Mr. Myers, you got something?
Yeah, would you like to have me put the letter together and have that at the next council meeting? Or do you want me to put it together and give it to the mayor? And are you going to authorize him to go ahead and sign it and send it to the governor? How do you want to do that? Because it'd be nice to get it to her sooner than later, like 2 weeks from now. It could be completely different again.
Yes, sir. Mr. Irvin?
I certainly trust either direction. If I had a preference, it would be to review it. I think it is important. This is a collective voice for all of us, and this is a really touchy, subject. So I would appreciate the opportunity to review. And I guess I just want to reiterate that despite all my underlying feelings, I want to make sure it has a very respectful, a very honoring tone to it. So
Mr. Fleck? And then
So that was going to be my question to you, Richard, is do you feel that you have consensus, our consensus to put that together? I'm kind of with Councilor Irvin. I'd like to see it, but if I'm okay also supporting it as long as you feel that you have good direction from us.
What we can do is we'll put one together and I'll run it by the mayor, and then after he's looked at it, I'll maybe send it out to everyone individually and just say, if you have any really strong issues or problems with it, let me know, and then I can visit with the mayor and make some adjustments, if that would work for everyone. That way we're not having a meeting.
Mr. Stennett?
I guess I was just gonna, ask on the process how we would do that outside this venue, how we would review something, and but yeah, that sounds great to me. I'd love to see it, to feel great about it, and to be able to tell other people about it. So yes.
Okay, so if that works for everybody, we'll just do it that way then. That Mr. Myers will send it out individually, and then if you got a issue, then we'll fix it and send it that way. Okay.
Great.
Item H, concerns from council. Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My number one topic for Richard, do we have any dates yet for those water tours?
No, we do not. They kind of got stalled as we went to extreme, so we kind of stopped thinking about it. But now that we're back at high, we'll be sending out some information to all of you to try to see if we can get a date that works for people. I think we had some that I'd kind of marked out, but I'm not sure how those would work. So we'll get some dates squared away and get them out to all of you to say, yeah, which ones work for you, and we can start putting that together. We were also going to visit with staff because we're going to have staff there at the facilities, and we'll be doing it in the evening, late afternoon time anyway, so it'll be outside of the work shift, just to make sure that we can get people to attend.
I've been working with Councilor Irvin on this, and I have a few citizens that would love to visit our water treatment, our water plants.
Great.
Vision Keepers, the meeting was really good. We have a strong group of folks involved in Vision Keepers. Once again, it's one of those things that COVID is keeping sort of handcuffed from doing anything. I can't wait to, there's so many great ideas in the Vision Keepers that we can't really do any of it because of the COVID. So I just can't wait to get through this pandemic. It was a great meeting, and you had a strong showing yourself. I like a lot of the things you said, Councilor Savage. For purpose just stated. I had another citizen call about double power poles out West Main. So just wanted to let you know that. And then I want to thank city staff for all the, a lot of the projects I've been doing. I've been getting so much help from city staff. Teresa and Jessica at the community center really helped me with the downtown cleanup. Want to thank them. Troop 140, Cosgrove Garden Club, my good friend Johnny O, professional bricklayer, redid all the bricks in the front of the park there on 7th and Main and got rid of the tripping hazard. Just some great work that went on over there. The Espresso Bar and Grocery Outlet for all the food. The downtown cleanup was a real success this year. I had over 40 people show up. And I want to thank everybody that made that happen because I could not do it without their help. Also want to thank city staff, Richard Myers and Faye Stewart for their help in getting the fence set up around the Opal, not the Opal, the Buster Keaton mural. The fence is up, the lift is coming, and we've been wire wheeling the mural and should be looking to start the painting process here in about another 8 days. So that's moving along really well. This coming Saturday, I'm going to be cleaning the Pioneer Cemetery, the McFarland Cemetery, with a group from Eugene that does historic cleanups. And again, Troop 140. So if any of you'd like to join us, we'll be there from 10 to 2 on Saturday. Our goal is to have that cemetery cleaned up and open on Memorial Day. That's pretty important. McFarland's have done what they've done, and I believe that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank you for the time.
Mr. Irvin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 3 items tonight. The first I'll just cover a report from the Lane Economic Committee meeting that met today. I guess the big news, well, it's not, I guess, yeah, it's big news. Oregon 22 is what it's now called, but that's the World Athletic Championships for track and field has been rescheduled and will be held at Hayward Field. So that's going to occur July 15th through the 24th, 2022. So there's a lot to get prepared for with that and a lot of opportunities that will come our way and will certainly be affected. So more on that in the future. I was reminded when we were talking about the Urban Forestry Committee that there's been a long time goal to have a tree survey completed. It's my understanding. So just want to get an update on that to see where we stand with that. If there's any additional resource or help that we need to do to actually get that completed. So we'd love to see that, get an inventory of what we have here in town. And then in terms of that interchange, kind of separate from the irrigation part of it, and I mentioned this in the Friday agenda session meeting, but I've had other people that live here in town comment on just the idea of having some sort of an art installation in there. And I understand that there's concerns with approval from ODOT and probably other jurisdictions, but anything that we can do to promote some like kind of thing that would become iconic for Cottage Grove in that space, or something that's really visible from I-5. Just want to say that I support and would love to work together however possible to see that come to fruition. That's it.
Anyone else? Ms. Savage.
Thank you so much. As Councilor Roberts mentioned, I attended my very first Vision Keepers meeting and thought it's thrilling to have so many great folks in one space sharing ideas and networking. I learned a lot and I'm really excited to go to the next one. I got looped into a project that the city is doing here in town on some alleyways behind Main Street. And I personally want to thank Greg Griswold for answering my phone call. He was incredibly responsive and was able to explain what was going on and thought of something I didn't think of, which was bringing in Faye Stewart, and looped him in. And both of them reached out to me with not necessarily the completion of the project, but with the results of what they've done today. I just want to thank them for being attentive to the matter. And from my understanding is there are far more positive reactions to regrading that back alleyway, and that's just incredibly great to see and to hear. And here we are maintaining the streets, and it's awesome that they're being on top of it. So I appreciate all of their hard work and their communication. So thank you.
Anyone else? I'd just like to bring up glad Mr. Bradsby's still on here. The Safe Routes to School 4th and Grant. I've been asked about if there could be some stop signs on those really nice crosswalks there, crossing 4th Street at the Grant intersection. They just, you know, if we're really going to make the kids safe, let's look into putting stop signs there for that crossing. And the other is the board members of the Oregon Mayors Association had to host part of the symposium that we had on Friday. We had to host 2 of the breakout workshops. And so I had City Planner Amanda Ferguson do emergency management planning, preparing, and responding to disasters. And so she was co-presenter on that. And then Commissioner Heather Buck did crisis management, since she was the Lane County chair during the pandemic and the Holiday Farm Fire. And so I want to thank both of presenters for making me look good at the OMA, for doing a really good job of presenting for the symposium. I appreciate it. And, you know, it's nice to have really good presenters that you know you can get to do something when people are struggling trying to find presenters, when you got a really good pool to pick from, and that was nice. So thank you. Business from city manager.
Just a few items. The double poles we've contacted, and it's one of the projects that the assistant to the city manager has been working on, dealing with our telecom and cable providers. Various lines that are down still from the snowstorm, and double poles. And so we've contacted PP&L and EPUD and gotten a list of the poles that they've decommissioned. Essentially, they've taken their utilities off, and usually they cut the top of the pole off, and then they contact the other utilities, Charter, CenturyLink, Lumen now, and ask them to remove their utilities or facilities from those poles so they can remove those poles. We're aware of several that had been like that for at least a year, if not more. And so Jake got those pole locations from those 2 utilities. We're preparing the information so we can go back to those utilities and say, hey, get your stuff off these poles so that they can get removed. We're using that also to help with some franchise negotiations as well. Friday morning, we mentioned an issue associated with Lumen in doing some work, allegedly, supposedly, and apparently without permits, in violation of their franchise agreement, doing aerial work that's new. They did go around us and have contacted Senator Przanski, so we'll be meeting with him probably next week and visiting and giving our side of the story and explaining him, here's what the law says, and we're not really interested in any exemptions because they didn't do it the right way to begin with, and they need to do it correctly. And we have examples of other utilities that have done it correctly, so it is not economically infeasible to do. So we'll be doing that. We are also on Saturday this week, there's a special event permit that we have in. We're starting to get a lot of special event permits, and we're starting to take park reservations again now, but we're encouraging them to follow some basic guidelines. This reservation's for All America City Square on Saturday at 2 o'clock. They'll be having a memorial celebration of life for Pete Anderson. Many of you know Pete that wandered around town. They'll be doing a little thing for him there. It's also farmers market that day, and they'll be open till 3, so it will be possibly crowded, but the farmers market has agreed to try to push their stuff towards Washington to the south, so that the road space could be used if they need extra room for people to be there and share that. So just bring that up for your attention. Also with the Oregon 2022, the World Athletic event, we met today again and got a report from Travelling County. We've been working, we submitted an application to be a training camp so that one of the athlete groups could come and use the high school and middle school facilities and have a place to train before the track and field event occurs, so that they can get used to the climate and to the altitude and all those and the pollen and everything else that happens around that time of year, and be ready for competitions and have full facilities, food, everything, and do that. We were talking about it today and got information that they had received from the organizers, that because we've been asking, we haven't heard anything. We haven't heard anybody interested in taking up and using the training camp. And when are we going to get information? How do we know when some more Lithuania or some little country wants to come to Cottage Grove? Basically, all of them are waiting until after the Tokyo Games, because then they'll know who's going to be coming to World. And so keep your eye on the Tokyo Games. Maybe you'll see some people that you might see here in town. So we'll know then when that's going on. One of the other things we're working on with the 2022 Games is some temporary RV parks. Working with Travelling County, we anticipate that there's going to be a need for more housing for guests and people coming for that, that will overload even the hotels and all the spaces that we have. So we're looking at some possibilities of having some locations in town where we can set up a temporary RV park. We're actually working a little bit today with the CDC on exploring options and working together, maybe making it something that could be used by the CDC to help with some fundraising as well. So we're partnering in that and trying to get that accomplished too in the community. I think that's basically it. Just a quick report. The first dress at the first location ended up being the dress she picked. So pretty nice. But we had to spend an hour trying on other dresses before she went back to the first one.
Okay, so we have no attorney report and there's no items to be removed from the consent agenda. So we are out in record half the time of our normal meeting. We're adjourned.